All right. We finished on Monday talking about the value, the benefits for both the upstream and the downstream members, an efficient channel system. And we stopped on this, and I just wanted to go over it again and just accentuate the advantages. If I were looking at 10 mom and pop retailers and 4 manufacturers of the same goods, like, as I said, candy, soft drinks, alcohol, cigarettes, we have all of these different contact lines that have to go on. The retailers, in terms of the advantages that would be brought to them, such as accumulation and all of the other things, would be quite simply impossible to deal with from these manufacturers who sell in pallets. The manufacturers, by the same token, each of these lines would require a negotiation in and of itself, which would lead to greater expenses. But a wholesaler, an individual wholesaler, can cure a lot of those problems. The wholesaler can collectively add up all of the requirements for the retailers, and as one single force go individually to each of these manufacturers and bargain the best deal that they can. For the upstream members, you have the routinization of transactions, the ability of having all of these things done in a much more efficient manner. These are the reasons why we have the channel systems we do. Complex channel systems, as I said before, and we will reiterate again, are the sign of an efficient channel. The specialization within it defines in and of itself that the channel is working in an efficient way. So this next slide is about the functions that channels do. Now, the first thing I want to say is I don't want to freak you out with all of them, but I just want you to note that the fact is that it's more than just simply moving a good from the manufacturer to the end user. There are actually 9 things that go on at one time. And so I'm going to be saying these things over and over again. So when I say them now, realize I'll probably be saying them again, just to help reinforce the concepts that we're going to go through. So these are the functions, along with possession, that happen in an efficient channel system. Now, the first time you look at this, it looks very busy and it seems like it's difficult to understand, but it's not that hard, all right? The first thing to note is that when you see this, what they've done is they've taken the traditional channel structure and kind of turned it on its side. And so you start with the producers at one end, the producers being the manufacturers or the originators, if you will. You have the wholesalers and the retailers, and then ultimately you have the consumers on the very end, because of course, consumers perform certain channel functions. Now, one of the major trends that has happened in the last, I would even say 3 decades, is the process of, seriously, they have chalk leaves here? Let's see. Is there any chalk on that board over there? No. Crazy. Can't believe I'm gonna have to go get chalk. One sliver. So generous. Anyway, what you see happening in the last 30 years is a process called disintermediation, all right? And that is the removal of channel members from the channel system. If we want to look at one of the most significant trends that's happened over the last 30 years and accelerated dramatically in the last 10 to 15 is the process of disintermediation, where the wholesalers and the retailers and the specialized intermediaries are being removed from the in-channel environment, and the producers or the manufacturers, if you will, are speaking directly to the end users. That in of itself creates advantages, but it also creates complications as well. And we'll talk about these at the end because I'll have a certain, what I would consider rules of thumbs about these. So let's kind of break them down and talk about them one at a time. So the first thing you might notice is that physical possession and ownership are actually two different things, not just one thing. So can any of you come up with an example of where you can have physical possession but not necessarily ownership? Yes.
Like leasing a car.
Exactly. Perfect example. So in leasing an automobile, what you have is you have possession of the automobile, but you don't have ownership. Consignment stores. I don't know if you have heard of those. A great example of a consignment store is if you go down King Street and you're on this side of the street, you'll notice that there's a furniture store that sells generally antique furniture or goods like that. It's actually a consignment store, and how that works is that if I'm an individual who has like a dresser or something like that, and I wish to sell it, what I can do is bring it to that store, and they will put it in a place, in a location, and I actually kind of lease that space. What they give you is they give you a storefront in which it's sold out of. When that good is sold, the consignment store gets a percentage of that sale. And so what the consignment store does is they sell it, they help someone move it, they do the sales tax on it, and then they'll take a percentage, I don't know, maybe 20% from the sale. And so that's an example of where you can have possession without ownership. It's kind of interesting. Walmart has often been called like the biggest consignment store in the world because there are many products that Walmart sells that they don't actually buy until the consumer buys them first. And then they buy them at net 45, which is, pretty much in their advantage. And so ownership and physical possession can be separate. If you notice promotion, this is the traditional version of promotion, where it flows from the producers, it's pushed down to the wholesalers. Wholesalers push that down to the retailers, and then of course the retailers promote their brands to the consumers. In the modern version, or let's just say the pull version, what you find is you find the producers who will do promotion directly to the consumers, and it will invoke some form of desires or demands, and then the consumer demand will pull the goods through the system. So the first group that actually, well, there have been many groups that have done this, but one of the more effective ones is when Viagra came in, which I know nothing about. Viagra, as a pharmaceutical, was one of the first ones that advertised directly to the consumers or souls, and used those three wonderful words: consult your doctor. And so, or ask your doctor. And so doing that, they started this whole revolution of pharmaceuticals that are sold directly to the end users, and the end user pulling those goods through the system. Now you notice that negotiation, finance, and risk are all kind of in the same category, and that there are two ways. In other words, it goes in both directions. Negotiation, financing, and risk basically flows up and down the channel. And because it does that, you find that they work together. Risk always has to do with usually possession. And not only will possession, wherever it occurs, usually you'll find financing as well. Goods do not land in a single location without it being financed and without wherever it lands accepting risk. If you notice, ordering always flows upstream, And that includes the consumer ordering from the retailer ordering goods from the wholesalers, and the wholesalers ordering goods from the producers. While the producers can try to invoke them, it flows upstream always, just like payment does as well. The last information sharing, this will be a note for you to remember in your test. Information sharing, as far as tests go, is the most important of the 9-channel functions, as far as your test is concerned. If we're ultimately going to achieve consumer satisfaction and the appreciation of the value, information sharing must be first, or let's just say is the most important. Because you have such a wealth of information at your fingertips, you can be fooled just like we were, but you're not fooled for long. All right. There, you do have the difficulty of having fake outlets in terms of information, but you have much greater wealth at your fingertips to find out the truth than we ever did before. And so, like I say, you might find corporations like FTX coming along, but they're not going to fool all the people all the time, even for a little while at all. And that's kind of why I say that in terms of these functions, information sharing is probably the most important. Now, these are some rules of thumb that are going to be important for you to consider, especially even taking a test, all right? So one of these important rules is this: disintermediation can occur. I can remove members of the channel, but I can't remove the functions that they perform. If I remove a member who performs a channel function, that channel function must be done by someone else. The next rule of thumb is specialization is the sign of an efficient channel structure. It goes along with the same rule of thumb that says not all members have to perform all channel functions. You can have specialists who do nothing but order or finance. But all of those functions need to be done either by a specialized intermediary or not. So one of the things that Build Redux does for all of the good that I'm getting in the market value that I've got, and it's only a $99 setup fee, is that as the complexity of the transaction increases, the greater need for finance options appears. And so Build Redux will do like a 30-second credit check and put you on a payment plan if you need to be. And that's an example. Now the financing is done by a third party. I can't, anyway, it doesn't matter. But it still is performed and it's done by a specialized intermediary. So these are some of the basic rules of the system, all right? The other thing also is that physical possession may not occur except to the end user. It is highly possible that a consumer can do an order and that the order, the delivery and everything is done by a third party, so that even the manufacturer doesn't get into the play. That happens as well. So all of these, are related. The last is that the performance of a channel function is directly correlated to the performance of all the channel functions. They have to be done efficiently and successfully in order for all of the others to perform just as well. It's the weakest link theory, in that the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And so if your payment system is bad or inefficient, it reflects through the entire process. I'm working with the Analytics Summit right now, and the payment system through the university, and it's not their fault, it is not cutting edge. And so there are a certain amount of things that we have to simply live with and deal with, but it's an example of how everything else is affected by one thing. So the last kind of thing is we're going to touch on is what I just said before, is that some functions move forward through the channel, such as physical possession, ownership, and promotion. Some flow backwards, like ordering and payment, and some functions move in either direction. You find generally all functions performing in an efficient channel environment. The last is I'm going to touch on this particular chapter will not be a test question, but I wanted to show you the framework that we go about designing and implementing channel systems. All right. This is kind of a circle, and I do agree with that because remember that channels is a process and not an event. And so the way this works is you start first by analyzing the desires and needs of your consumers. You analyze the efficiency of your channel environment to see whether it can satisfy those consumers' needs. And then you decide of the products that you sell, whether you're going to make them yourself or buy them from someone else. The next is the decision phase. We'll talk about this, is the three key decisions about designing the channel and the mix of the different channel types. How we go about benchmarking the system, which is basically stating how does it compare and contrast with an ideal, well-developed channel system? And then how does it compare to the newly emerging channel environments that are out there? And then finally, the process itself, when we've got everything fixed in stone, is how do we go about implementing the process? And these are where we talk about the people's skills of power, the acceptance, and how do we deal with conflict, and how do we build relationships. And we're not going to worry about policies and logistics. That will be for your advances in probably supply chain. Okay, so end of chapter 1. So I am going to show you a commercial. Hope I don't blow your ears out. What is good about this commercial is this commercial is throwing very powerful signals to you as a consumer if you're part of the consumer group that it's trying to target. This is a great example for market segmentation by channels. So this is a Walmart commercial. I believe it was 2018. It was during the Super Bowl. So without further ado, let's roll. Noise, please. Hold on.
Michael. I'm not Michael.
Oh, don't worry, he calls everyone Michael.
Easter egg. That's Sam Walton's original Ford F-150. That's the one that he drove around in from 1963 to 1983, putting together the Walmart concept. So I always find that to be pretty cool. Okay, so anybody recognize the song, by the way?
In cars.
Cars, that's right. From Gary Newman. It was a new wave. So new wave was a style of music very popular in the 80s, Depeche Mode, those kind of groups were like that. So this commercial is sending out very powerful signals to the market segment that it's trying to attract. So what is the sale point of this? What are we talking about? What's it selling? What's it selling?
Curbside pickup,
Curbside pickup of what? What do you do?
groceries,
And you order it how?
probably through your phone or.
Online. There you go. But what about pickup curb service? What is the unique part about it? What does it do? Or what is it about curbside pickup?
So it's free pickup.
Right. And what about the whole thing?
Saves time.
Yeah. And what do you have to do? Nothing. Not only that, do you even get out of your car? No, that's the point. Okay, good. Look at the automobiles that you're looking at. At what generation or what years do they start? So you saw the Flintstone mobile, that's my generation. You saw what other cars in there? Ghostbusters, that's right. What else?
Transformer.
Transformers, you bet. What else?
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber, you're right, all of those. It's speaking to a generation that has kids, all right? So it is looking and using generational signals that are talking to a particular generation and telling them that you don't have to get out of your car to go pick up your stuff. And that is a major service function. It is a service output, one of the things that we'll talk about in segmentation, that is extremely desirable and one that just nails it for this particular commercial. This is a perfect example of market segmentation by how you get the goods, not why or when or anything else. And so I use this as an excellent dovetail into getting into this chapter where we talk about market segmentation by a way that you may not have ever thought of, market segmentation by place. Okay. So how do we go about segmenting by place or by channels? Well, the first thing, if you remember from our conversation on Monday, one of the things that I talked about is like in the real world, we have limited resources. That the hopeful, best, ideal thing that marketing does, it allows us to target the end users that have the greatest chance of finding value at our goods. And if we're going to succeed, we need to start with the end users because the end users hold the power of the purse. They're the individuals who pay us. It is the end users' desires and demands, the way that they want to receive their goods, that can be a powerful reason of why consumers buy in the first place. And so what we hope to do is design a channel that isn't about what end users want, but how they want it happen. And as many of these things happen, sometimes they happen by design, sometimes they happen because the consumers do it that way. Once again, as Jack says, marketing is context driven. Buy online, pick up in store did not come about because somebody thought it was a smart idea. Buy online, pick up store came about because that's the way consumers wanted it. Buy online, pick up in store can be expensive because it eats into about 15% of the overall profit margin because it requires the stores to pull those goods and put them in a location for the consumers to pick up. But it gives you one very valuable thing. It brings consumers into your stores. And that was such a difficult thing even 2 years ago. And so what you do is you provide them with some impetus, some reason to go look further. And usually that's done by some kind of in-store coupon that will give you additional benefits if you continue to shop. And so this is channels and understanding its importance to end users, all right? Just as the Walmart commercial showed that there is a distinct desire by consumers to pick up their goods without getting out of their cars, this is one of those varying preferences and demands for a service output, and this is a service that Walmart has used to get consumers in. It is by grouping them by these unique demands that help us define market segments. I'm kind of a tech guy, and there's surely tech people in here far better than I am and far more up to date. But my level of need when I go into like a Best Buy is different from another individual's going into Best Buy. And especially those of you who have more experience than I do, you're a different segment as well. When I go in, I usually say I'm not, I'm just looking. You don't have to worry about me or anything like that. The people, by the way, the people in Best Buy, if you know the way a traditional Best Buy is laid out, they're looking for people who go to the right side of the store. Like when you walk through the doors, you're going towards the starboard side, because that's where the $4,000 entertainment systems are. So if your first turn in direction is towards that, they're coming after you, okay? So a service output describes the elements about how the product or service can be bought. It's not about the good itself, but how those goods are provided to a consumer. And sometimes the how is more important than the what. So one of the things, as I said, from the bill redux, I got to do the service check, did all of that. I'm buying the goods at market value, and they're only marking it up 99 bucks to put it together. That is a service that is worth far more to me than I could if I were to build it myself. I don't need to. I don't care to. There's so many ways to mess up nowadays. But it is a service output. It's desired by a lot of people besides myself. And so let's talk about the end user segmentation criteria. How do we go about separating those goods? So, as with these slides, and as I've said before, you'll get one of these main title slides that'll talk about it, and then we'll break them down one at a time. So what this does first is it sets like the parameters, all things being equal, price, product attributes, physical attributes. End users prefer a marketing channel that provides more service outcomes. All things being equal, the price and the product are the same. Who cares about promotion? If I provide more service, they're considered more desirable. And so if I were looking at customer service and the Lexus gives us that 1 free year of oil changes away, that provides to me a greater value. And so let's look at these categories of goods one at a time. And so the first is bulk breaking. So one of the things Dr. Alvinson does so well is when we go to Myrtle Beach or to Surfside Beach is we go to places where there is a kitchen and all of those things because there's no fun in eating out all the time. The breakfasts in Surfside Beach are awesome, by the way. They must have a dozen breakfast places in Surfside Beach. Don't ask me how or why. They just do. But if I bring dishwashing liquid, Dr. Alvinson is not going to bring the large bottle. She's going to bring a small one because buying in small lots reduces the needs for end users to carry unnecessary inventory. And those big bottles, you know, as sure as anything, they can break and or something can go wrong. It's just more efficient to have them in a smaller version. The more bulk breaking, the smaller the lot sizes and the higher the value is as well. So if you notice, you're finding a lot of Coke cans in like an 8-ounce size, and you're also seeing candy in a particular count. There's a particular number that calories and soft drinks are trying to hit. Anybody want to guess what that number is? It's calories. It's under 100 calories. And you're finding sizes of candy and soft drinks trying to hit that magic Mendoza line where consumers consider it to be of greater value. They're even taking like the big sizes and they're, you know, making them separate and creating tear and show. Like I'm going to show my M&Ms. But anyway, they change the logo so that, well, not one person is going to eat this big candy bar. They cut them in half because the reason why, once again, is that the lot sizes are considered more desirable and an end user would be willing to pay for a smaller one than they would a larger one. And I think there's another thing going on as well. I think we're more and more concerned about waste. And I think waste comes into a certain amount of this. Nobody wants to open a good and have a third of it spoil. So you're finding that smaller sizes are considered more value. And the small size, by the way, is just the same price of a 20-ounce bottle. But we desire it and we accept it and we buy it. So as it is, this is the one that I talked about. So at a vacation house, you'll use a small bottle of laundry detergent. You're finding even now that the smart ones are providing 2 and 3 uses of like laundry detergents so that you have them there when they come. And it's such an inexpensive thing. And it's just so smart and clever because as a consumer, I find great value in having that, knowing that when I get there, I don't have to immediately go out to a store and get it. So you find that in smaller packages, consumers find them more acceptable and more desired. The next is spatial convenience. Spatial convenience refers to the nearness or closeness that you find in or getting your goods. So the traditional supermarket, it's kind of interesting. Supermarkets at the turn of the 20th century were generally where the grocer picked your goods for you and bagged them for you. And that was the original supermarket. Piggly Wiggly, of all places, Piggly Wiggly modernized the modern supermarket by allowing consumers to get their own goods, make their own choices. And guess what? Because they perform channel functions, they got a break in the price. And so that's how the modern supermarket evolved. You started going to the mega stores and the giant stores. There is in New Orleans, there was one called Schwegmann's, where the supermarket store itself was as big as a mall. I'm not lying. And you may even know of instances around there. Well, we've gone through this demassification, as Toffler talks about in the 80s, where we're starting to become more decentralized again. And you're finding neighborhood supermarkets and convenience stores and even vending machines and gas stations are starting to be more further spread out. And so the convenience, the closeness is something that consumers desire more and will pay more for a convenience item than they will in the regular store. A consumer will pay for a 16-ounce drink, they'll pay $2 for that in a convenience store, whereas they could walk over to the Lowe's, the grocery store, and they could buy a liter bottle for 99 cents. The convenience is considered desirable, right? And so spatial convenience is another thing. Waiting time. Now, I'm going through this myself. I talked about my Build Redux machine. Shipping is supposed to be January 30th. And I am a lot more willing to wait, but I am being compensated for it because of an extremely low price. Like I said, the goods that I'm buying are bought at market value, which is cheap, inexpensive, all right? All they're charging me to put the machine together is only 99 bucks. The shipping is free. How can I pass that up? And yes, it's required me to wait longer than I wanted to, but waiting time can be compensated with a lower price. The intensity of demand, however, changes significantly between the purchase of the original equipment and post-sale service. So if you think of a MRI machine, if it suddenly breaks down, there's a lot of things that are going wrong. One of them is that this is a money device that the hospital has that is not in use. The second is the human cost as well of not having these machines available when consumers need them. These are the times when money is no object and you need them as quickly as possible. By the way, contracts, just in case you wanted to know, on-site contracts for less than 4 hours are generally around 25% of the original sale price. So if you paid for something like an MRI device for $1 million, the service contract would be $250,000. But it gets them there in less than 4 hours and hopefully fixed too. So waiting time is one of those flexibility items depending on the needs and the demand. So this is the ultrasound equipment. It's pretty much the same example that you're willing to pay a price premium that promises speedy service, always do. You can find that they can be combinations of them, like bulk breaking, spatial convenience, and delivery time. You see this happen when you're doing analysis. There are many times when the service required is less than the service that's demanded. And so this is an example in Mexico where they sell through grocery stores and liquor stores, but there's also an additional channel for those neighborhood buyers who can't necessarily afford a six-pack. You'll find someone, a resident in that neighborhood area, who will buy what we used to call a half barrel, a keg of beer, and they will separate them so that they can give you an individual bottle of beer. You find this in Russia as well. There'll be one individual in the neighborhood who brews vodka, and generally they will sell a liter. They just ask you to bring your own glass container. And so this is an example that sometimes the service demands simply can't be met, especially when the consumers may not necessarily be at a level that the higher ups consider to be, to be worth making money on. However, if the service is desired, people find a way. And this is kind of that example of this. When I talk about gap analysis and I talk about this, I'll talk about when we used to be able to have singles, and singles went away from compact disc, and that brought about the digital revolution. So product variety and assortment, we're going to go through this again today, and I kind of want to show you just so it makes it a little bit easier on describing this for you, because this can be a pretty confusing subject. So where are we? Okay. So breadth or assortment, variety is the number of different categories that you have, right? It's this way. Breadth. The depth is the number of different brands, different sizes, and different items you have within a given product category. It's a way of thinking about this in 3 dimensions, all right? The breadth, how wide it is, and the depth, how deep it is. They're kind of confusing subjects, and I'd like to kind of show these because it makes it a little bit easier to kind of describe this. So the variety, as I said, the breadth, the different classes of goods that constitute the offering, and the assortment is the depth of product brands or models that are within each generic category. And so as I talked about before, Walmart has limited assortments, but they have wide variety. Walmart has one of everything, but not in the depth that you can find certainly in any supermarket. And this is why it's good to go by Walmart if you need something badly, but if you're in the shopping and you can get these things done, it's better to do it this way. And of course, it's extremely important to know which goods are offered to each target customer. So, Hot Topic is kind of a unique animal. Hot Topic is generally for individuals under the age of 30. Hot Topic is a unique store in that it is a store that actually makes money on fads. So before this, generally fashions take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Actually, it takes 6 months to plan out fashions. Usually you have to have fashions in the store 6 weeks before the next season. And so you're seeing right now stores that have goods for February and March that are being sold right now. So that's how it works. Hot Topic kind of threw that away. Hot Topic can put these goods together in less than 2 weeks. That can hit with a fad. It can explode for a week or two, and then by the end of the month, it's in the bargain bin. But they're able to do that in the right combination with the right assortment, with a quick delivery, and they've been able to do it in a really unique way. It's been like one of those marketing questions about, will this work, or is there a model to make this possible? And Hot Topic has found a way to do it, and they've done it quite well. So this is kind of an example of assortment and delivery times and how they work together and work successfully for them. So customer service, and this is where Walmart is and where that commercial was. It was actually an excellent commercial for Walmart because for years, Walmart has been lagging in their perception in terms of customer service as well. interesting, customer satisfaction in Walmart in 2018 went up by 10% from 71 to 81%. And it's interesting to note that that is the same year that everyone in Walmart got a pay increase. It's amazing how little money will make you happy, all right? And it made consumers happy too. So customer service has to do with any of the aspects that have to do with the shopping experience, whether it is commercial or retailers. As I've said before, I can sell the same product, I can do the same delivery, but my service to my customer, if it is better, makes me better than another company. And service can be a sustainable competitive advantage because it can be difficult to duplicate. So they track DirecTV as one of the top in the industries. They have an high average revenue. They have a very low churn rate, which is the individuals, the rate of turnover that of end users. And it has to do really with their customer rep. So if you become a customer rep with DirecTV, they do whatever they can to take care of you. You get all of DirecTV service for one thing, everything that they have, so that you can invest your time in knowing how every channel works. And I think it's smart. They also invest in their education too, which means that that's education they could take somewhere else, but they consider those two key things important, especially if you look at streaming services in general right now, they're tanking. They may not be tanking as less than the others, I guess is the best way of putting it. So has anybody ever been to a Cabela's and lived to talk about it? Where is there anyone near here, by the way? I don't even know.
Johnson City.
Really? Big one or there? Yeah, Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops have merged now, by the way. And so they're ridiculous. All right. I mean, it's so funny to go in on to see them. They are an experience like none other. They kind of built around the basic thing is that men are not really into shopping. You got to find the right bait. That's all I can say. The Bass Pro Shop in Baton Rouge built a lake so that if you wanted to test out a bass boat, they would drop it in the lake and ride you around it. I'm serious. Okay. I was at the Bass one in Baton Rouge where they had a tank that was 10 feet high. You looked up at it and it was a giant fish tank and it was full of bass. And so they had a fisherman on the top and he was casting and he was showing you the proper technique to catch bass, and you could see the bass being caught, and it was like a show unto itself. It is the experience of the service ultimately that determines how we enjoy what we're going through. If the experience is unequaled, it creates an overall value as well. And so Cabela's, Bass, they nailed it. Anybody been to the IKEA in Charlotte? Okay, my wife's Swedish, so when we go, we have to go rent a hotel room. We're not coming home. There's a reason, by the way, they put a restaurant in there is because they're determined that you're not going to find your way out. Okay, so you actually, if you can find the map to go through an IKEA, you're better than I am. All right. These are experiences, and the experiences are examples of these services, and they perform well. All right. They are superior in the way that they work. The last is information sharing. And I've said this and I'll say it again. Information sharing may be the most important of all of them. Information sharing both pre and post. And post is as important or even more important than you might be able to conceive. because the post-purchase evaluation goes a long way to determining happiness by your customer and those of their friends as well, all right? One of the better ways that they share information is by providing solutions, which is known as solutions retailing. So back when I was working at Omni Computer Store in Lafayette, we would do a demonstration with the e-size plotters and also with Hewlett Packard setup along with AutoCAD. And we would show the engineers what you could actually do and how you could design them. And by doing it like that, you put together a solution for them for under $20,000 that couldn't be bought for $100,000 maybe a year or two before. That's what a solution retailing is the information sharing provides an answer to a question that may or not be necessarily answered, but you're in the market for it. If you go to Lowe's, not the supermarket, but the other one, the home improvement center, usually on the right-hand side, there's a chalkboard there, and it'll tell you like Wednesday night from 6:30 to 7:30, we'll show you how to put in grout. We'll show you the proper way to install tile, those kind of things. That's an example of solutions retailing, because the other part that it does is it shows you how to use the goods in their store to be able to do the solutions. Any education provided to the end users is considered information sharing. And like I said, as part of the things that you share are part of the channels, I think information sharing is the most important, right? And if it comes to a test question, information sharing is the most important. Okay. All right, I've run out of voice. We're done for today. We will come back and finish chapter 2 on Monday. And I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.